The bright morning sun shone over San Diego as Lieutenant Frank Mason jogged along the beach. His daily run was a habit from his 10 years in the Navy. The cool breeze felt good against his face as he watched the waves crash against the shore. It was a perfect day on Earth, year 2087. Frank's wristcom buzzed. He slowed to a walk and tapped the screen. Admiral Kelly's face appeared, his expression grim. "Mason, report to base immediately. This is not a drill." Frank didn't waste time asking questions. "Yes, sir. On my way." 20 minutes later, Frank stood in the command center of Naval Base San Diego alongside dozens of officers staring at the main screen. Massive objects had appeared in orbit around Earth. They weren't meteors or satellites, they were ships, alien ships. "They appeared 30 minutes ago," Admiral Kelly said. "No warning, no response to communications. Similar reports are coming in from around the world." Frank studied the grainy images. "How big are they?" "The largest is approximately 3 miles long," a nearby analyst said. "We're counting at least 20 major vessels and hundreds of smaller craft." A young communications officer turned from her station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast worldwide on all frequencies." The main screen flickered. A tall, gray-skinned figure appeared. Its face was angular with 4 yellow eyes and no visible nose. When it spoke, its thin lips barely moved, but everyone heard a deep, artificially translated voice. "People of Earth, I am Commander Zexatral of the Valkyrie Expansion Fleet. Your planet has been selected for integration into the Valkyrie Empire. Your technology level has been assessed as primitive. Your military capability has been deemed insignificant. You have 1 Earth rotation to surrender all governmental authority to Valkyrie representatives. Resistance will result in demonstration strikes. Continued resistance will result in population centers being eliminated. Choose wisely." The screen went black. The room erupted in shocked voices. Admiral Kelly silenced them with a raised hand. "Get me the president, now." Across the country at Stanford University, Dr. Olivia Wright watched the same broadcast on her lab screen. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. "Did you see it?" she asked when her colleague answered. "Everyone saw it, Liv. It was on every channel, every device. What do we do?" Olivia stared at the equations on her whiteboard. Her research on electromagnetic field manipulation suddenly seemed trivial. "I don't know, but we need to save our data. If these aliens are advanced enough for interstellar travel, their technology must be incredible." The next 12 hours were chaos. World leaders met in emergency session. Military forces went on high alert. People panicked, prayed, or prepared. Some did all 3. The response from Earth's combined governments came just before the deadline. "Earth belongs to humanity. We will not surrender to threats. We invite peaceful communication, but will defend our world." The Valkyrie's answer came swiftly. At exactly 24 hours after their first appearance, bright beams of light shot down from the alien ships. One struck Mexico City, another hit Beijing, a third destroyed Delhi. Millions died in seconds. Frank was aboard the UES Defiant, one of Earth's few space-capable warships, watching the devastation on the monitors. They had been ordered to maintain position behind the moon, out of the aliens. Immediate detection. "This can't be happening," whispered the navigator beside him. "Status report," Frank demanded, pushing down his own horror. "All systems operational, weapons hot." "But sir, what can we possibly do against ships that size?" Frank's jaw tightened. "We find a weakness. Everything has one." On the 3rd day of the invasion, Valkyrie landing craft descended on major cities. Ground troops, tall gray figures in metallic armor, established control zones. Their weapons turned tanks into scrap metal. Their shields made them nearly invulnerable to bullets. Olivia had been drafted into a hastily assembled scientific team. The government had relocated them to an underground facility in Colorado. Their mission: understand the alien technology and find a way to fight back. "Their energy signatures are unlike anything I've seen," she told her team as they analyzed data from the attacks. "But there's something here." She pointed to an anomaly in the readings. "During this attack on London, There was a momentary fluctuation in their shields when our forces used an EMP device. It didn't take them down, but it created a disturbance. A week into the invasion, Earth's organized military resistance was crumbling. The Valkyrie controlled most major cities, but they had a problem they hadn't anticipated. Humans refused to stay conquered. Frank and the crew of the Defiant had managed one small victory. They had caught a Valkyrie scout ship alone and disabled it with concentrated fire from multiple angles. The alien craft crashed in the Canadian wilderness. "They can be hurt," Frank told his crew as they salvaged technology from the wreck. "They can be killed. They're not gods." The Valkyrie commander appeared on worldwide broadcasts again. His tone had changed from dismissive to annoyed. "Your resistance is illogical and wasteful. No species has successfully resisted Valkyrie integration. Accept your place and survive. Continue fighting and perish." In her lab, Olivia made a breakthrough. "The Valkyrie shields operate on a modulating frequency," she explained to her team. "If we can match the counter frequency and broadcast it at the right moment, we might be able to create a window of vulnerability." She didn't know if her discovery would reach the remaining military forces. Communication networks were compromised, but she documented everything and sent copies through every channel available. 1 month after the invasion began, the situation looked hopeless. Half of Earth's major cities lay in ruins. Billions were dead or displaced. The Valkyrie had established processing centers where humans were evaluated for their usefulness to the Empire. But something unexpected was happening. The Valkyrie were facing increasing resistance. Their patrols went missing. Their outposts were sabotaged. Humans adapted quickly, learning to use captured Valkyrie technology against them. Frank had gathered a group of military survivors in the mountains of what was once called Colorado. They had established a hidden base and were conducting hit-and-run attacks on Valkyrie supply lines. "They expected us to give up," he told his fighters. "They don't understand humans." In her secret lab, now relocated to an abandoned mineshaft, Olivia refined her counter-frequency device. Initial tests had shown promise. A small Valkyrie drone had been temporarily disabled. "We need to test this on something bigger," she told her colleagues. That night, looking up at the stars where Valkyrie ships still loomed, Frank made a silent promise. Earth would not fall. Humanity would not be enslaved. The Valkyrie had made a fatal error. They had attacked Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened humanity's greatest strength, the absolute refusal to accept defeat. The real war was just beginning. 3 months had passed since the Valkyrie ships first appeared in Earth's skies. Winter settled over the Rocky Mountains where Frank Mason and his growing band of fighters had established their main base. They called it Haven, though it was anything but comfortable. A network of old mining tunnels reinforced with scavenged materials. Frank studied the map spread across a makeshift table. Red marks showed known Valkyrie strongholds. Blue marks indicated resistance cells. There were more blue marks each week. "Supply team is back," said Lisa Ortiz as she entered the command room. The former police sniper had become Frank's second in command. She dropped a bag on the table. "We got lucky. Found a Valkyrie patrol vehicle disabled by a landslide. Got these before they could send recovery teams." Frank examined the alien devices, communication tools, weapons parts, and what appeared to be data storage units. "Get these to Ben in engineering. Maybe he can make sense of them." Already on it. Also, the new folks from Boulder arrived. 50 more fighters, including 3 with military experience. Frank nodded. The resistance grew stronger every day, not because they were winning, they weren't, not yet, but because humans refused to accept defeat. Hundreds of miles away, Dr. Olivia Wright walked through the gleaming corridors of the Rocky Mountain Valkyrie Research Center. To the aliens, she was Collaborator 37, a human scientist who had seen reason and now worked to help implement Valkyrie technological systems on Earth. They even gave her limited access to their databases and equipment. What they didn't know was that every night Olivia secretly transmitted everything she learned to the Resistance. "Collaborator 37, your presence is required in Laboratory 6, a Valkyrie voice announced over the speakers. Olivia adjusted her white lab coat with the Valkyrie insignia and headed to the lab. Inside, Sub-Commander Kelvor waited. Like all Valkyrie, he stood nearly 7 feet tall with gray skin and 4 yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. "You have made progress integrating our power systems with your primitive electrical grid," Kelvor said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, Sub-Commander. The conversion process is proceeding as scheduled." "Good. Commander Zextral is displeased with the continued resistance in this region. He believes faster implementation of Valkyrie benefits will reduce human hostility." Olivia kept her face neutral. "I'm sure he's right." Later that evening, in her private quarters, Olivia activated her hidden transmitter. The device, built from modified Valkyrie parts, sent encrypted bursts of data that mimicked routine system noise. "This is Mockingbird," she whispered into the small microphone. "Sending new shield frequency data and patrol schedules. Also, they're planning something big at the Denver Processing Center. Sounds like some kind of new evaluation protocol for human subjects." At Haven, Ben Carter received Olivia's transmission. The former electrical engineer had become the Resistance's technology expert. He passed the decoded message to Frank. "She's been right every time so far," Ben said. "If the Valkyrie are changing their processing procedures, it could mean they're identifying more people for off-world transport." Frank frowned. The Valkyrie had started shipping groups of humans to unknown destinations. No one who left Earth had ever returned or been heard from again. "We need to hit that processing center," Frank decided. "And we need to capture someone. Who knows where they're taking our people." 2 nights later, Frank led a team of 12 fighters toward the Denver Processing Center. They wore scavenged Valkyrie armor over thermal clothing to mask their heat signatures from alien sensors. "Remember, we need at least 1 officer alive," Frank reminded them over the secure comlink. "And we need to free as many prisoners as possible." They approached from the northwest, using Olivia's intelligence to avoid patrol routes. The facility loomed ahead, a massive pyramid-shaped building that had once been a sports stadium. Guards at the north entrance, 2 Valkyrie, 4 human collaborators, reported Lisa from her sniper position. "Wait for my signal," Frank instructed. He activated the device Ben had created using Olivia's frequency data. It emitted a pulse designed to disrupt Valkyrie communication systems. The guards' helmets sparked. They reached up in confusion. Frank gave the signal, and his team moved in silently. The human collaborators surrendered immediately when they saw other humans in partial Valkyrie gear. The aliens fought but fell quickly without their coordinated systems. Inside, they moved efficiently through the processing center, freeing hundreds of captured humans and downloading data from the central terminals. Frank located a Valkyrie officer, a ranking administrator with gold markings on his armor. "Secure him," Frank ordered. "Complete data extraction in 2 minutes, then we move out." They escaped with the prisoner and over 300 freed humans before the Valkyrie realized what had happened. By dawn, they had disappeared into the network of resistant safe houses throughout the former Colorado. At Haven, Frank interrogated the Valkyrie officer. The alien was surprisingly willing to talk once isolated from his kind. "You are an anomaly," the Valkyrie said in his mechanical-sounding translated voice. "No species has maintained effective resistance after initial defeat." "Where are you taking the humans you ship off-world?" Frank demanded. "To labor planets, resource extraction colonies, research facilities. The Valkyrie Empire spans 300 worlds. We always need workers." "Have other planets resisted?" The Valkyrie's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, their equivalent of a shrug. "Many try. None succeed beyond the first planetary rotation. Humans are persistent beyond logic." Frank leaned forward. "Why Earth? Why now? Your world was scheduled for assessment. You developed nuclear capabilities but had not achieved interstellar travel. Such species are always incorporated before they become problematic." Later, Frank shared what he'd learned with his leadership council. "They've done this hundreds of times to other species. They have a playbook, and they're following it. But we're not following ours." "What does that mean for us?" Lisa asked. "It means we have a chance. They expect us to either surrender completely or fight conventionally and lose. They don't expect us to adapt. to use their own technology against them. The next day, Olivia's handler at the research facility introduced her to a new project. "We are implementing improved shield technology for ground forces," the Valkyrie scientist explained. "Human weapons have proven more persistent than anticipated." Olivia noted the frustration in the alien's voice. "I'll help however I can." That evening, she transmitted again. "This is Mockingbird. They're upgrading their shields. But there's something else. I overheard officers talking. The Valkyrie fleet is stretched thin. They've had to pull ships from other systems to maintain control here. Earth is fighting back harder than any planet they've ever conquered." Frank smiled when he heard the message. Humanity wasn't winning yet, but they weren't losing either. And for a species that had conquered hundreds of worlds without significant resistance, the Valkyrie were facing something entirely new. A prey that refused to be hunted, an enemy that grew stronger with each defeat. The real war was just beginning, and humans were writing a new playbook with each passing day. 1 year had passed since the day the Valkyrie ships darkened Earth's skies. Now General Frank Mason stood on a hillside watching the sunrise. Below in the valley, thousands of resistance fighters prepared for what might be the most important battle yet. "Beautiful morning," said Lisa as she joined him. She handed him a steaming cup made from pine bark, the closest thing to coffee they had these days. "Could be our last," Frank said, taking a sip. Lisa shook her head. "Not if Olivia's intelligence is correct." In the past year, everything had changed. What began as scattered resistance groups had become a coordinated global force. Humans had learned to modify captured Valkyrie weapons. They had cracked their communication codes. They had even figured out how to jam their shields using Olivia's frequency discoveries. Frank's wristcom buzzed, a device now enhanced with Valkyrie technology. "Command center secure. All team leaders report ready status," came Ben's voice. "On my way," Frank replied. He took one last look at the sunrise. "Let's make it count." In the command center, a reinforced bunker beneath an abandoned mall, Frank addressed the assembled team leaders. The room was filled with people who had been ordinary citizens a year ago. Teachers, farmers, office workers. Now they were soldiers in humanity's most important war. "Operation Turning Point begins in 3 hours, Frank announced. Every resistance cell worldwide has received the same briefing. At exactly 800 hours globally, we strike every major Valkyrie command ship simultaneously. He pointed to the map showing Valkyrie positions. Thanks to Dr. Wright's intelligence, we know they've consolidated their fleet. They brought in reinforcements but pulled ships from outlying positions to do it. They're still thinking like conquerors, not defenders. Peter Donovan, their communications expert, stepped forward. The frequency disruptors have been distributed. Each team has one. They must be activated at exactly the same moment worldwide for maximum effect. Frank nodded. This is our chance to show the Valkyrie that Earth isn't just another conquest. Today we hit back. In the Valkyrie research facility, Olivia packed her small bag carefully. After months of providing intelligence to the resistance, her cover was at risk. Too many coincidences had led to successful human strikes. The Valkyrie were becoming suspicious of all their human collaborators. She downloaded one final data packet from the Valkyrie systems, the complete technical specifications for their FTL drive system. It had taken months of careful hacking to access this information, considered among the most sacred Valkyrie secrets. As she prepared to leave her quarters, her door slid open unexpectedly. Sub-Commander Kelvor stood there with 2 guards. "Collaborator 37, you are required for immediate questioning," he stated flatly. Olivia's heart raced, but she kept her face calm. "Of course, Sub-Commander. May I ask what this is regarding?" "Security anomalies. You will come now." She nodded and grabbed her bag, pressing a hidden button on her wristcom as she did. The emergency signal to the resistance that would also wipe her transmission records. At exactly 800 hours, as Olivia was being led to the interrogation chamber, the world changed. All across the globe, resistance fighters activated Olivia's frequency disruptors simultaneously. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every Valkyrie shield system fluctuated and failed. Their communication networks went silent. Their weapons systems temporarily locked up. Frank led the assault on the main Valkyrie command ship hovering over what had once been Denver. Using captured and modified Valkyrie shuttles, his teams approached the massive vessel under cover of the disruption. "All teams weapons hot," Frank ordered as they breached the outer hull. "Remember your training. They're bigger and stronger, but we're faster and more adaptable." Inside the enormous ship, the resistance fighters split into assigned groups. Frank led Alpha Team toward the bridge. Beta Team headed for engineering. Gamma Team moved toward the detention center. The Valkyrie were in disarray. Without their coordinated communications and with their personal shields failing, they fought as individuals, something they had little experience with. Humans, who had been fighting as individuals in small teams for a year, had the advantage. Alpha Team reached the bridge after fierce fighting. Frank used a captured officer's hand to activate the door controls. Inside, Commander Zexatral and his bridge crew turned in shock. "Impossible," Zexatral said when he saw humans storming his bridge. "No primitive species has ever—" His words were cut short as Lisa's precise shot knocked him unconscious. "Secure the command systems," Frank ordered, "and get Zexatral restrained. We need him alive." Across the globe, similar scenes played out. Human resistance fighters captured or disabled 17 major Valkyrie vessels within the first hour. The few that managed to escape Earth's atmosphere were met by a surprise: the UES Defiant and 5 other Earth ships that had been hidden on the far side of the moon. These vessels, now enhanced with reverse-engineered Valkyrie technology, engaged the fleeing alien ships. At the research facility, the confusion provided Olivia with her chance. When the lights flickered and alarms blared, she acted quickly. She struck Kelvor with a hidden stun device and fled as the guards rushed to aid their commander. Making her way through the chaotic facility, Olivia headed for the landing bay. She had memorized the security protocols for the small Valkyrie shuttles kept there. If she could reach one, she could escape. As she turned a corner, she nearly collided with a team of resistance fighters who had breached the facility. "Dr. Wright?" the team leader asked in surprise. "Perfect timing." Olivia smiled. "I have something better than a shuttle. Follow me." She led them to a secured hangar where a sleek Valkyrie science vessel was docked. "This ship contains their most advanced research equipment and their FTL drive specifications. I've downloaded the technical data, but having the actual drive will be even better." By nightfall, the balance of power had shifted dramatically. Most of the Valkyrie command structure on Earth had been captured or eliminated. Their fleet was in retreat, with only a few ships escaping to carry news back to the Valkyrie Empire. In Denver, now a resistance stronghold, Frank met with Olivia for the first time in a year. They stood in what had once been the Valkyrie Commanders' quarters aboard the captured flagship, now renamed the Vengeance. "Your intelligence made this possible," Frank told her. "Without those frequency disruptors, we'd still be fighting from the shadows." Olivia shook her head. "It wasn't just the technology, it was humanity's refusal to give up. The Valkyrie never expected that." "What's in the data you stole?" Frank asked. Olivia smiled. "Everything we need to not just defend Earth, but to take the fight to them, including how their faster-than-light drives work. Can we build one?" "Better," she said. "We can use theirs, and I've discovered something they kept secret. Humans can operate their technology just as well as they can. There's nothing special about Valkyrie biology that makes their tech work." Frank looked out the viewport at Earth below. "So what's next?" "They'll be back," Olivia said. "With a bigger fleet. We've surprised them once, but they've conquered hundreds of worlds. They won't give up easily." Frank nodded. "Then we don't wait for them to return. We take the fight to them." For the first time in a year, Earth had hope. And across the galaxy, news began to spread of something unprecedented. A primitive species that had not only resisted the mighty Valkyrie Empire, but had pushed them back. The impossible had happened, and the galaxy was about to learn why no one who attacked Earth ever returned. The bridge of the Vengeance hummed with activity as the massive ship slipped through the darkness of space. What was once a Valkyrie command vessel now carried Earth's best fighters and brightest minds deep into enemy territory. Frank stood at the main viewport, watching the stars streak by. Even after 3 months in space, the sight of faster-than-light travel amazed him. Earth was now billions of miles behind them. "General, we're approaching the Caldarian system," said the navigation officer. "Sensors show Valkyrie activity at the third planet." Frank nodded. "Maintain stealth approach. Alert Dr. Wright." Minutes later, Olivia joined him on the bridge. The former scientist now wore a uniform with the new Earth Defense Force insignia, a globe with stars surrounding it. "Another mining colony?" she asked. "Based on the scans, yes, and another chance to make allies." The Vengeance had been on a mission with 3 goals: disrupt Valkyrie supply lines, gather intelligence on their empire, and find allies among the species they had conquered. In the 3 months since leaving Earth, they had succeeded beyond expectation. "Receiving transmission from the planet," announced Peter from the communications station. "It's using the frequency we broadcast." "Put it through," Frank ordered. A face appeared on the main screen. Not Valkyrie, but a creature with blue skin and large, expressive eyes. It spoke in a musical language that the ship's computer translated. "Earth vessel, we received your message. The Valkyrie overseers have only a small presence here. We are ready to help if you are truly enemies of the Empire." Frank stepped forward. "We are. Earth was attacked by the Valkyrie 1 standard year ago. We've come to fight back and to free others like you." The alien's eyes widened. "You defeated Valkyrie forces. This is unheard of." "We have much to discuss," Frank replied. "Prepare your people. We arrive in 6 hours." The liberation of Keldar III went smoothly. The Keldarians had been under Valkyrie control for generations, forced to mine rare minerals. When the Vengeance crew demonstrated how to disable Valkyrie shields, the small garrison of overseers was quickly overwhelmed. In the aftermath, the Keldarian leader Talzen shared valuable information. The Valkyrie Empire stretches across this spiral arm of the galaxy. They have conquered hundreds of worlds over thousands of years. No species has successfully resisted them. Until humans. "Why are they so successful?" Olivia asked. "Their technology is advanced, yes, but their true power comes from fear. Each new species they conquer becomes an example to others. Those who submit quickly are treated better than those who resist." "And those who resist completely?" Frankie asked. Talzen's large eyes blinked slowly. "None ever have. Until you." The Keldarians weren't warriors, but they provided something equally valuable: information, star charts, communication codes, locations of key Valkyrie facilities, and most importantly, the location of other subjugated worlds where the Vengeance might find allies. 2 weeks later, the Earth ship arrived at Nezdek Prime, home to an insectoid species with advanced mathematical and engineering skills. The Nezdek had been conquered 3 centuries earlier and now designed weapons for the Valkyrie. "Your ship has Valkyrie design but human modifications," observed the Nezdek representative, their mandibles clicking as they examined the Vengeance's engines. "Very ingenious adaptations." "Necessity," Olivia explained. "We had to learn quickly, or be destroyed. Humans learn differently than other species. The Nezdek searched for the word. "Improvise. The Valkyrie fear this quality above all others." With Nezdek engineers aboard, the Vengeance's systems were further enhanced. The ship's weapons became more powerful, its shields more resistant, its engines faster. At each liberated world, some of the local species joined the Vengeance crew, bringing unique skills and knowledge. The ship became a floating alliance of the oppressed, united by a common enemy and inspired by the humans who had done the impossible. 4 months into their mission, disaster struck. The Vengeance was ambushed by 3 Valkyrie battlecruisers near a remote outpost. The enemy had been waiting. "Shields at 60%, shouted Lisa from the tactical station, as the ship rocked from another impact. "Return fire all batteries," Frank ordered. "Evasive pattern Delta." The Vengeance twisted and turned, firing back at its attackers. On the engineering deck, Olivia worked frantically with the Nezdek engineers to reroute power. The new shield, modifications are holding, she reported over the comm, but not for long against 3 ships. Another blast hit the Vengeance, sending sparks flying across the bridge. Shields at 30%, Lisa reported grimly. Frank studied the tactical display. Fighting 3-to-1 odds required something the Valkyrie wouldn't expect. Something human. All power to forward shields, he ordered, and plot a collision course with the lead vessel. The bridge crew stared at him in shock. Not to ram them, Frank explained quickly. But I want them to think we're desperate enough to try. Understanding dawned on Peter's face. Make them break formation to avoid us. Exactly. And when two of the Vengeance surged forward, directly at the center Valkyrie ship. As Frank predicted, the enemy vessel veered sharply to avoid collision. Now. All weapons on the port vessel, Frank commanded. The Vengeance's weapons concentrated on a single target, overwhelming its shields. The Valkyrie ship erupted in a series of explosions. Bring us about. Target the starboard vessel. The battle raged for another 20 minutes. When it ended, 2 Valkyrie ships were destroyed, and 1 severely damaged, limping away into faster-than-light speed. The Vengeance had survived, but not without cost. 37 crew members were dead. Multiple systems were damaged. Repairs would take weeks. As Frank walked through the ship checking on his crew, he found Olivia in the medical bay, treating injured NESDEC engineers. They're saying it's impossible, she told him quietly. No one destroys Valkyrie battle cruisers, especially not former subject species. They need to update their understanding of impossible, Frank replied. Later, as the damaged ship limped to a hidden base established on a lifeless moon, Frank studied the data they'd gathered over months of raiding Valkyrie territory. A pattern was emerging. They're mobilizing, he told his officers during their strategy meeting. The Valkyrie are pulling ships from throughout their empire to deal with us and with the uprisings we've inspired. Is that good or bad? Asked Lisa. Both, Frank answered. It means we're hurting them, but it also means they're preparing a massive counterattack. Against us or against Earth? Peter wondered. Both, probably, Olivia said. But we've learned something critical from the NESDEC records. The Valkyrie Empire is stretched thin. They've conquered too many worlds too quickly. They don't have the resources to control everything if multiple systems rebel simultaneously. Frank nodded slowly. Then we need to accelerate our plans. It's time to take this rebellion to the heart of the Empire. Valkor Prime, Olivia said. Their homeworld. Impossible, whispered one of the alien crew members. No enemy has ever reached the Valkyrie homeworld. Frank smiled grimly. That's what they said about resisting them at all. Humans specialize in impossible. As the Vengeance underwent repairs, word spread throughout the Valkyrie Empire. A ship crewed by humans and liberated species was attacking Imperial strongholds. The supposedly invincible Valkyrie were vulnerable. Resistance was possible. And for the first time in thousands of years, the Valkyrie Empire knew fear. Valkor Prime loomed in the main viewport, a massive ringed planet surrounded by defense platforms and warships. 6 months had passed since the Vengeance left Earth, and now they faced their greatest challenge. Frank stood on the bridge of the lead ship in what had become known as the Liberation Fleet. Behind the Vengeance were 37 vessels from 16 different species, all formerly under Valkyrie control, all now fighting for freedom. I never thought I'd see it, said Talzen, the Keldarian who had become one of Frank's trusted advisors. The homeworld of our oppressors. Status report, Frank called out, his eyes still fixed on the planet. Valkyrie defense grid is active, Lisa replied from Tactical. Over 200 ships in defensive formation, planetary shields at maximum. And our special package? Frank asked. Ready for deployment, Olivia confirmed. The NESDEC engineers have outdone themselves. Frank nodded and opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is General Mason. For some of you, the Valkyrie have been your masters for centuries. For Earth, it has only been a year and a half. But today, regardless of how long we've suffered, we fight together to end their empire of fear. He paused, looking at the mixed crew of his ship, humans working alongside beings from across the galaxy. The Valkyrie believe their homeworld is impregnable. They believe no enemy could ever reach them here. Today we prove them wrong. Execute battle plan Trojan. Across the fleet, ships vanished from sensors as they activated the special cloaking. Technology developed by the Nezdek. Only the Vengeance remained visible, transmitting Valkyrie identification codes stolen from a captured vessel. Incoming transmission from Valkor Control, Peter announced. Put it through, Frank ordered. A Valkyrie face appeared on screen, older than any they had seen before, with decorative markings on its gray skin. Unidentified vessel, you are transmitting outdated codes. State your purpose immediately or be destroyed. Frank stepped forward. This is the Valkyrie cruiser Dominion, returning with critical intelligence about the human rebellion. Request immediate. Audience with Imperial Command. There was a long pause. Vessel Dominion was reported destroyed 3 standard months ago, the controller finally said. Damaged, not destroyed. Frank replied smoothly. We've been operating under communication silence, tracking the human vessel. We have vital information about their capabilities and weaknesses. Another pause, longer this time. Proceed to docking. Bay 7. Any deviation from the assigned path will result in immediate destruction. Understood, Control. Proceeding to Bay 7. The transmission ended, and Frank turned to his crew. They're suspicious but curious enough to let us get close. Exactly as we hoped. The Vengeance moved slowly toward the massive space station orbiting Valkor Prime. Behind it, invisible to sensors, the Liberation fleet split into assigned groups, ready to attack once the Valkyrie defenses were compromised. Approaching docking bay, the helm officer reported. Valkyrie escort vessels moving into position around us. Stand by, Frank said calmly. Olivia, status? In the engineering section, Olivia made final adjustments to what the crew had nicknamed the Disruptor, a more powerful version of the frequency device that had allowed humans to defeat the Valkyrie on Earth. Ready on your command, she replied. The Vengeance entered the enormous docking bay. Valkyrie troops were visible, forming a perimeter around the landing zone. They've got at least 100 soldiers waiting for us, Lisa noted. Good, Frank smiled. More who won't be at their battle stations. Activate the Disruptor. Olivia pressed a sequence of commands. The device powered up, sending waves of carefully calibrated energy throughout the station. Immediately, Valkyrie, systems began to fail. Shields dropped. Communications garbled. Weapons locked up. Fleet Command, execute Phase 2, Frank ordered over the secure channel. Across the Valkyrie defense perimeter, the cloaked ships suddenly appeared, firing on the surprised defenders. Chaos erupted as the Valkyrie, for the first time in their history, faced an attack on their homeworld. Boarding teams deploy, Frank commanded. Primary target is the central control hub. Frank led the first team out of the Vengeance. They met. Resistance immediately. Valkyrie guards fighting desperately even with their advanced technology compromised. The battle was fierce but brief. Without their technological advantage, the Valkyrie found themselves facing species they had oppressed for generations, now armed with the same weapons and driven by centuries of resentment. Frank's team fought their way to the central control hub. Inside, they found what intelligence had suggested: the Valkyrie Emperor, Valkoroth himself, surrounded by his high command. Impossible, Valkoroth said as Frank entered the room. Like all Valkyrie, he was tall and gray-skinned, but his eyes were deep red instead of yellow. No primitive species could reach Valkor Prime. We're full of surprises, Frank replied, weapon raised. Your empire is falling. Defense platforms across the system have been captured. Your fleet is in disarray. Surrender now. The Emperor's 4 eyes blinked slowly. For 10,000 years, the Valkyrie have ruled this sector of the galaxy. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. We cannot be defeated by primitives who only left their own moon a century ago. One of the Valkyrie officers lunged for a control panel. Lisa fired instantly, but not before the officer had activated some kind of sequence. Alarms blared throughout the station. What did he do? Frank demanded. The Emperor's mouth formed what might have been a smile. If Valcor Prime falls, it falls. Completely. The purification protocol will sterilize this entire system. None of you will survive to celebrate your victory. Olivia's voice came urgently over the comm. Frank, they've activated some kind of self-destruct. It's tied into the planetary core. They're going to collapse the planet and create a shockwave that will destroy everything in this system. Can you stop it? Working on it. The Nezdik are helping, but this is technology we've never seen before. Frank turned back to the Emperor. Give us the deactivation codes, now. Valkareth stood silent, his face impassive. Minutes ticked by as Olivia and the Nezdik engineers worked frantically to stop the countdown. Throughout the Valkyrie system, the battle raged, but news of the purification protocol had spread. The Liberation fleet began pulling back to a safe distance. 30 seconds to detonation, Olivia reported grimly. We've tried everything. Frank stared at the Emperor, then made a decision. Evacuate the station. All teams return to ships immediately. We're leaving. You cannot escape, Valkareth said calmly. The protocol affects the entire system. We're not trying to escape, Frank replied. He grabbed the Emperor by his ornate robes. You're coming with us. The Emperor struggled but was no match for Frank's determination. They raced back to the Vengeance, dragging the protesting Valkyrie leader. As the countdown reached its final seconds, Olivia made a desperate adjustment to the ship's drive system. Everyone brace for emergency jump. The Vengeance and those Liberation ships close enough to follow its lead made a dangerous faster-than-light jump from inside the Valkyrie system, something considered impossible by conventional wisdom. Behind them, Valcor Prime imploded, creating a massive shockwave that destroyed much of the Valkyrie fleet and defense platforms. But thanks to Olivia's calculations, most of the Liberation fleet escaped. 2 weeks later, on a neutral space station at the edge of what had been Valkyrie space, representatives from dozens of formerly subjugated planets met to discuss the future. The Valkyrie Emperor, now a prisoner, watched in disbelief as his empire crumbled. Without the homeworld and central command, Valkyrie forces throughout the galaxy surrendered or fled. I still do not understand, Valkareth said to Frank. We studied your species for decades before attacking. You were divided, primitive, confined to one system. How did you defeat us? Frank looked at the alliance of species working together, former enemies now planning a peaceful future. You studied our technology, our weapons, our planet, he said, but you missed the most important thing about humans, which is, when pushed to the edge, we don't fall, we fight harder. When told something is impossible, we take it as a challenge. We adapt, we overcome, and we never, ever give up. The Emperor's 4 eyes blinked slowly. The next species that discovers Earth will hear of what happened to the Valkyrie. Frank nodded. Good. Then they'll know to come in peace, or not to come at all. Across the galaxy, the story spread of how a small blue planet, when attacked by the mighty Valkyrie, not only resisted but ultimately freed the galaxy from their oppression. In time, dozens of alien civilizations added a special note to their records about Earth. Approach with respect or do not approach at all. For those who attack Earth, never return.